Welcome back. If you're joining us right now, this is TV47 Daily Report with me, Victor Muyakane, and Rhoda Nyamai on sign language. In other news, Kenya has become one of the global dumping grounds for heavy-duty vehicles and trucks. This may derail the transition to EVs, that is electric vehicles, in the country from the current 10 years to indefinitely. This is according to the Director of Transport, Policy and Planning for the Northern Corridor, Emmanuel Imaniranzi, who says that despite the policy barring vehicles older than 8 years from entering the country, individuals still find loopholes through neighboring states, presenting an unending stream of carbon emitters. Hibak Saeed with a report.
As the 6th session of the United Nations Environmental Assembly kicks off in the country, experts and policymakers convene to pinpoint the possible end to the use of one of the largest carbon emitters in the global south, heavy-duty trucks that are cheap and easily accessible, especially for moving cargo in between countries.
The size of these heavy commercial trucks we have currently, which is approximately between 12,000 and 15,000. Now, in 2018, we did an inventory survey. We wanted to quantify emissions along the corridor and also try to see how other vehicles contribute towards our member states, across our member states. So what we saw is that between 48 and 55, actually close to 60% of emissions that were quantified among our member states, the corridors alone, we are contributing between 48 and 60% of emissions.
The largest sources of this climate hazard has been narrowed down to Japan, Korea and the European Union. 3 sources that are, ironically, transitioning to safe and cleaner transport options.
We know where they're coming from. Why don't we stop them at source? Well, of course, we have to realize that a country like Kenya depends on its vehicles from imports. And in Kenya, 97% of the vehicles in Kenya are used vehicles. So Kenya needs those used vehicles. It doesn't produce new vehicles. It needs those used vehicles to continue growing.
The global price reduction of used heavy-duty vehicles is resulting from the global adoption of its electric counterpart, as governments continue to find ways to encourage transporters to make more eco-friendly options, Kenya being one of them.
There's huge health impacts that come from those emissions. So here we have the air quality aspect, but black carbon is also driving climate change. And the more we hit the urgency, and well, only a couple of weeks ago, we heard scientists coming out with estimations that there's a 66% likelihood that we will hit the 1.5 threshold.
Now the UNEA Council is advocating for blanket policies regulating the importation of the growing menace in African countries to force the global north to adopt other ways of disposing of used and old vehicles.
What did we find, as Rob said, a situation where you have unroadworthy vehicles that are very substandard coming into the markets, and countries that are actually building a local manufacturing capability are being outcompeted by some of these imports of unroadworthy used vehicles.
The influx of heavy-duty second-hand vehicles is making the zero-carbon emission dream even further. This as policymakers are being urged to tighten regulations to ensure that electric vehicles are the #1 choice, especially for people who are buying new vehicles. Hibak Saeed for TV47 Nairobi.